Today's guest has spent more than 20 years in institutional finance, managing over $1.5 billion in assets as a hedge fund portfolio manager at Merrill Lynch. He understands markets not in theory, but from the inside, where decisions are fast, capital is unforgiving, and mistakes are expensive. And then one of his videos about anti-Semitism was shared organically across platforms and racked up over 10 million views worldwide and thrusted him into becoming an activist. That moment sparked a wider conversation, bringing him back to Israel, onto global stages, and into deeper discussion about truth, leadership, media, and influence in the modern world. I had the opportunity of going with him to the Nova Massacre one-year anniversary, where he experienced a raw and visceral moment. Today's guest is Max Radford. All right, Max, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me. As good as can be, considering everything that's going on in the world right now.
Yes. So for everyone to know, we met in Israel from like a kind of a partnership that happened a while ago. And you became like a social influencer without even understanding it. That's how your story starts in a way.
Yeah, something like that. I certainly never had any intention to do that. It was really just circumstances that really created that. Obviously it's post October 7th. I've always been, vocal and an advocate for Israel in my way, but in a very closed, I say non-social media way, Facebook, but that's just friends, right? And not much beyond that, and also only really in written. Certainly not doing
so you were like the
videos
average British Jewish person who celebrates all the holidays, but makes a post about Hanukkah or whatever, Passover, and wishes everyone happy whatever, but never really outspoken about it. And suddenly you got thrusted into a situation where you are one of the main people in Britain at the time who started talking about what's going on.
I wouldn't say that. So a few things there. Not the average English Jew. I'm only half English. My good half is my Israeli half. So obviously I did spend time in Israel. I lived there from the age of 7 to 13. So my mother's Israeli and family and my cousins are there. My connection to Israel is far deeper than, just being born Jewish. But nevertheless, and my activity online was always actually reasonably political. I was interested, and I did constantly write stuff that was, on geopolitics. But again, to a very small audience. So it's not that I didn't do that. And I'll give you an example. For 10 years, I'd been writing about the fact that I'm a huge soccer fan, but I will refuse to watch any minute of the Qatar World Cup unless Israel qualify, which of course they didn't. And I'd been writing the reasons for that all along. And then before the World Cup, everyone around me was like, well, of course you're going to watch it. And England went to the semi-final, and I never watched a single minute. And then after the World Cup finished, I wrote again about why, and I was refusing to lend my eyes to one of the biggest sport washing events in the world. So I was very active in that space, and I was also very active in talking about, especially to do with Jeremy Corbyn when he was potentially rising to power in the UK. So I had certain things that happened over the years that my eyes were, wide open to what was to come. And that mostly comes from the fact that my lens of time that I use to look forward and look at the world is maybe a little bit longer than most people, not everybody. So for my lens of time is 30 years. I look like what did the world look like when my kids are my age, because my daughter's 30 years younger than me. And when you look forward like that, you start to see a picture. And that always made me, concerned, genuinely. What I didn't account for with my posture on the World Cup, my position on the World Cup and not watching it, is that was obviously at the end of 2022. Of course, come October 7th, 2023, everyone is like, Max, unfortunately, you called it. because they knew that the Qatar was the one feeding the beast. And suddenly so that elevated it a little bit, but that's not where I became publicly visible outside of my sphere. That was for another reason, which I can tell you about if you'd like me
Yeah,
to.
let's go ahead. Tell me. I'm eager to know.
So it's a little bit ironic. No, actually, maybe the word ironic is not right. It's scaring me that I'm telling you this week, because obviously of what's happened in Bondi in Sydney. So the starting place for this was an ex-friend, an old colleague that I used to work in the financial markets, in the futures markets 25 years ago. He's an Australian who was in London at the time. He's now back in Australia. He is of, I'm unsure exactly which Arab background. His surname is Shahidi, but I'm not sure if he's Lebanese or Egyptian, but he's got an Arab background. But we were great friends. I even stayed in his house when we were in Australia. But there's always been the odd comment here and there. But obviously, in the lead up to October 7th, there was some pretty nasty stuff being said online. And after October 7th, there's everything that we've seen: the lies, the blood libels, the accusations, the genocide, the apartheid, everything that could be cast against Israel and the Jews was being said by this gentleman to his small bubble of 50 people. But that's enough for me. I was not going to let that lie. So I responded in the messages. And then that became personal, like DM messages, direct messages to each other, where obviously I was calling him out. I wasn't the only one, but certainly the most vocal one. Then I arrive in Israel in March 2024. So it's obviously a few months after October 7th. It's the first time I've been after October 7th. I land in Tel Aviv. It's just before Independence Day, Yom Ha'atzmaut, so there's Israel flags everywhere. And I do a little video from the taxi on the way from the airport, and I'm saying, sorry, my friend, all I can see is Israel flags. And he said something really nasty back. So I said, this is in a private message, you're just a modern day anti-Semitic Nazi scumbag. That was just from me to him. And he said, I dare you to put that in the public domain. So I said, okay, I will. So, and I'd never done a video before. So I go to the Tayalet, to the promenade in Tel Aviv beach, right in the middle of the beach. And I've got, a lifeguard hut behind me with the Israel flag. And, I can see Jaffa, obviously, to the south, and towards Herzliya on the north. I'm right in the middle there. And I record this video to him. I name him. I say, you dared me to do it. And and then it's about 4 or 5 minutes long. And this is to a guy in Australia. What I didn't account for is what was going to happen next. I posted it online, but I also posted it on the futures market group, which is where there are a lot of ex-traders, because I was in the city for many years, and there's 2,500 people on this group, where he was also, so I posted it there. I went one better. He's not that social media savvy. I posted it on his wall. So because I tagged him, it appeared on his wall. And I posted it on LinkedIn. It went crazy. I had 1,000 LinkedIn connections, business connections, on the back of this one video. So that was my kind of first step into doing something online. A few things happened on that trip. I went to Hostage Square. I recorded a few videos that were kind of explanatory videos. Again, I'd only just unblocked my Instagram because I didn't have many followers, but there was, tens of thousands of views, but no followers. So I unblocked it. And then I had this T-shirt made in the Carmel market, which said, bring them home. And then it had, from the river to the sea, this is the only flag you're going to see, with the Israel flag in the middle. And I had that made, and you'll appreciate this. It's not something that I'd done before. I had that done to jump out of a plane over Masada and the Dead Sea. I was doing a skydive, so I had the T-shirt made. Anyway, just joining the dots for you. So fast forward a couple of months after that, and there was a lot of activity around this kind of media stuff, as I call it, the accidental influencer. I had no intention. And then I arrive in central London. There is a huge protest, pro-Palestinian. It's the biggest one there was. It was like 100,000 crossing over the bridges. And we had a little counter-protest on the side, some Israeli flags. And of course, I'm wearing the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Israel flag draped over me. I know you've seen this video, and a hat and glasses. And a young a journalist comes up to me with a camera, and he says, "Do you mind if I interview you?" And
Mm-hmm.
he does. He lit the touch paper, literally, with an opening line, which was, "I've covered the this conflict from the Palestinian point of view many times, and I wanted to do it
Mm-hmm.
from the Israel point of view." And my immediate response was, "You didn't cover it from the Palestinian point of view. You covered it from the Palestinian Arab point of view, but we're Palestinian Jews. They don't
Yeah.
own the word Palestine." And that was the opening line. And then from there, it was 11 minutes long. A couple of ladies were next to me listening. They said, "Listen, you have to do something with that interview." I asked the guy where it was published online, screen recorded it, uploaded it, and it dwarfed what happened with the other video. I don't know because it went to so many places, but something like 8 to 10 million views across platforms of that video. So much so that in Israel it got translated into Hebrew. And a very prominent Israeli journalist, person known as Tzvia Chezkeli, he posted it himself.
Yeah.
And he had like 1 million views of it of my interview. And he said, "This guy must have read my book."
Yeah.
Although I'd never heard of him at the time, so I hadn't read his book. And that was it. That from that moment on, that led me to meet you,
Yeah.
because of course, yourself and amazing run, invited me to Israel to do more, speak more, say more, record some footage and things. And of course, it's hard to not be emotional about it, but we went down together at 3:00 in the morning to the Nova Festival site on October 7th, 2024. And I have goosebumps about it now, about lots of things on that day. But one thing specifically that you did, actually, and that was when we stopped off at a petrol station along the way, and there was a load of soldiers getting out of their armored vehicles, etc., having a stop off.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, that's the first time I'd seen soldiers kind of in combat, right? They were on the way to Gaza, and
Mm-hmm.
you introduced me to them, and I stood with them, and yeah, I'll never forget that moment. Like, never forget that. That was really special, and I knew that I was on a mission then.
Yeah. That was a truly unique moment. We're driving to the Nova Memorial, first year, right?
Mhm.
Um,
It was 3:30 a.m.
yeah,
and it was on the 7th of October, 24.
yeah,
We needed to get there before 6:29.
yeah. The event started at 6:29. We're driving to the Nova, and then we stop. We left Tel Aviv at 2 a.m., I think, right? Something like that. We drive there, we stop. There's a convoy of army hammers, basically leaving Gaza, right? For
I think there was
us,
lots going in two directions. Yeah.
yeah, there were lots going in, there were lots going out. This is literally the road that Hamas traveled on. It's Highway 232, going basically from the breached fence all the way into Israel. This is where the army had one of its most horrifying battles. And there's a huge, basically three reserve hammers driving by, and for us it's very usual. For us it's like, yeah, army and stuff, but we just call them over and say, "Hey guys, let's take a picture."
Yeah. But you introduced them to me and you told them what I did. But
Yeah,
I did, obviously we spoke to them and I did a couple of pictures, but I
yeah.
also did a video from there. And
Mm-hmm.
one, which is the one that really sticks with me, is that I was really explaining to people who these soldiers are.
Yeah.
They were reservists. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
professional soldiers as such.
No.
These were guys that worked in tech startups and doctors and work in hotels and restaurants and students and everything you could imagine other than being soldiers. Yet
Yeah.
they were heading there to defend us. And that really stuck with me, the fact that this is every man with any ability in Israel and many women heading to defend the country against, one of the most, horrific days in our history. So
Yeah.
it had, I'd only, you say being emotional, I'd been
Yeah.
so emotional, obviously in all of the lead up, because this is now a year on.
Yeah.
But I'd never really seen anything with my own eyes. And, when you're an eyewitness, everything changes,
Yeah.
everything. I
Yeah.
have so many memories. And I only just landed from the airport, Uri.
Yeah.
I
We just
literally,
picked you up.
yeah, literally I just got there and yeah, never forget so many things that you introduced me to on that day. Yeah. And my t-shirt, there is the Nova, the Nova t-shirt, that we will dance again. And, yeah, wow. You're going to make me cry. Yeah, that was an unbelievable morning. And it was really just preparation for what was to
Yeah.
follow in the rest of the day.
Yeah. And the
Um,
crazy thing is that, Israel, this is like for me, this is the great example of what is Israel. So you see an Ethiopian guy, you see a religious, I think, no. Here's a guy with a yarmulke. Here's a guy with a yarmulke, I think. No, there's a
yeah.
guy here. This guy's an Ethiopian. This guy looks like he's Ashkenazi Jew. This guy looks like he's a Sephardi Jew. No one cares.
No,
No
we're all
one
one and the
cares.
same.
Yeah, no one cares about this BS. We're all there together. Yeah, here is the convoy I was talking
Yeah.
about. They're literally driving out of Gaza.
I remember one of them had like the diamond on the side of the vehicle from
Yeah,
Yalomim, obviously was the
yeah,
unit.
yeah.
But I tell you, there are so many things.
And this is the Nova event. This is the
Yeah.
1 year Nova event.
Yeah.
Which was
And a great beard. Yes, that's my arm there in the back next to you. You can see my tattoo. But we saw and witnessed so many things. Obviously, for me, a lot of it was new. And of course, at the event, as you remember, I had a couple of deep conversations with some Sky News reporters, which you guys
yeah,
recorded some of.
yeah,
And like I say, everything was preparing you for the next thing. And I'm going to say this because it's a thing that I can't forget from that day. Is that we talk about being eyewitness. Once you're an eyewitness to something, no one can ever deny you. You didn't read
yeah,
it. You didn't watch it. You didn't see it online. You saw it with your own eyes. And that means that no one can ever debunk you. But then I did see something which took my breath away. And I'll never forget asking you and Run and someone else that was with us about it. And that was when we went to the lookout in Sderot. So there's a little mountain on the side of Sderot where you go and there's like binoculars and you can look into Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never done that. I'd only seen on the news.
Yeah.
So, but when I looked, because obviously that's the northern part of Gaza, right? So it's the closest part to Israel. And I was shocked. As soon as my eyes focused through the binoculars, I lost my breath and I couldn't believe the complete devastation. And I didn't expect that. I knew there was devastation, but I didn't expect it to be like that because ultimately it's fairly surgical in respect of who we target and fine. And then I asked the question, which was, how come all of it is so destroyed? And one of you said 80% of the families in Gaza have a Hamas member. And everywhere they went, in every house, in every school, in every kid's cupboard, under beds, everywhere was either got arms or booby trapped.
Yeah.
There was, and it drew a line there for me about, who is Hamas, who are Palestinians, or are they just Hamastinians? Because ultimately they elected them and they're all part of it. And it opened a whole different like line of realizing that what we're dealing with is far bigger than a terrorist organization who's, subjugating their own people in Gaza. The people in Gaza were complicit. They took part, they
Yeah.
celebrated, they came through the border and they did what they did. And that's why it looks like it looks.
One of the things that for me is I mean I was working with the army intelligence at the time, and one of the things that for me for years were really annoying is that the army intelligence was continuously pushing out a false narrative of you have Hamas and then you have Gazans, which is actually not the truth. The truth is that Gaza is Hamas and Hamas is Gaza. And did we take you to the museum, to the army museum?
We
We did,
did.
right? And you saw the ID cards for UNRWA employees who were Hamas, and they used that to travel around. So UNRWA was complicit. The
Huge
UN was
part of the
complicit.
story.
Sorry?
It's a huge part of the story. Everyone was part of the story.
Yeah.
Everyone was complicit. You showed me everything from the school books, to the doctrine of the Muslim Brotherhood,
Mm-hmm.
to the arms that we used, and also how far they managed to get into Israel, and where they got intercepted.
Yeah.
So many things, but absolutely, this is the point, right? That everyone is complicit. And actually, I mentioned that video that I did to my ex-Australian friend, and I asked that question about Nazi Germany in that video. And I said, well, if the Germans, ordinary German citizens, supported Hitler and the SS and Nazi Germany and contributed to it, does that make them Nazis? Or not? And
Yeah.
clearly it does, right? So
Yeah.
and so that's the same for anyone actually who supports Hamas, even if they're not in Gaza. Actually, even that individual or anywhere, anyone who supports them is a terrorist by
Yeah.
default.
Yeah.
And this picture is just obviously getting worse and worse, and now you see that this has
Yeah.
gone beyond the borders of Israel, which we
Yeah.
always knew it.
We always knew it will. In fact, 1997, I had met with the person who just left the job of being the head of the army intelligence, who had said, in 30 years' time, Europe is going to be a very unsafe place, and that was 1997, and he's right. He's right. We can see it. It is an unsafe. I mean, it's unsafe for Europeans, let alone unsafe for Jewish people. That's what
Well,
it is.
one of the I'm going to call it advantages of being someone that's been in the financial markets for 25 years as a trader and a broker is that I'm a numbers guy.
Exactly.
And when you're a numbers guy, you just do math, and math is
Right.
very, very, very clear. Okay,
Yeah.
just on that average European birth rate, which is extremely low in some countries, is as low as 1.2, 1.3 in countries like
Hmm.
Greece and Italy, etc. To the UK, that might be more like 1.6 or so. Yeah, Jews in the UK probably slightly higher, probably an average of 2, which is like 1.9 is the standstill, right? To not have a decreasing population.
Yeah. 2.2,
But
I think, is the replacement. Below that is anything is
yeah,
a replacement.
but the our cousins, shall we say, that have infiltrated Europe by way of hijra, not
Yeah.
jihad, but hijra, the migration of people.
Yeah.
And the influence that they bring with that, and everything that they're doing, which we can go into, their birth rate is actually growing. It was 4, it's now pushing towards 6. It's
Yeah.
just basic math that with our 250,000 Jews here is going to remain as 250,000 Jews, probably going to decrease now due to Aliyah and other people escaping Europe, or Jews escaping Europe. But the Muslim population in the UK is 4.5 million or so. It's maybe it's around 6%. that we know about. There's a lot of illegals, but
Hmm.
also their birth rate is, in the 4s and 5s and 6s. Basic
Yeah.
math, one generation, they are a voting bloc.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we didn't have, let's call it Islamist MPs in government, not in anything prominent. Okay. In this last election, there are 6 MPs that ran on a Gaza ticket, nothing to do with the NHS or, better life for the people of Britain. They came in just on a Gaza ticket.
Yeah.
Okay. 6. That's now. What happens at the next one?
Yeah.
My,
What happens in
my
10 or 15 years?
Yeah, well, my parents were forced. I say, they decided themselves to vote, and it sounds crazy, to vote for the Labour Party. They had no desire ever to vote for the Labour Party, but the candidate for the area that they live in was on a Gaza ticket. So the only way we could make sure that that individual doesn't take over the area that I grew up with, which used to be the largest Jewish population in Europe back in the day, in that part of East London. So they had to vote for Labour. And the Labour candidate, which is Wes Streeting, is one of the front benchers of the cabinet, only got in by 500 votes. So
My
their
God.
tactical vote was, and this is what's happening. And and that's 2 years ago, right? What's going
Yeah.
on since is, yeah. I don't know if anyone's waking up. I used to sign every video off, and all the time was generally something like "wake up." Okay, always wake up world. I used to wake up world. And now we're sleepwalking. The West is sleepwalking its way into the caliphate.
Yeah.
They're literally sleepwalking.
It's
Um,
unbelievable because I'm and again, I don't personally have anything against Arabs. I know amazing Arabs. I know people like Arabs serve in the Israeli army. Some of
sure.
them, they're amazing people. I mean, if they want to play by the rules, it's just that this demography is destiny in a way. You cannot fight it, and I think it is not a fight between. Here's where the narrative gets a little bit off track for me. It's not a fight between Jews and Arabs. It's a fight between Western civilization and values that are not compatible with Western civilization. That's it. You know, Western civilization is the greatest thing that happened to humanity, and the other values, they're not. And we know that from we saw what happened in Gaza, and we're seeing what happened in Europe. What happens in Europe?
Well, we don't have to have an opinion on it because they say that themselves.
Yeah,
They say first we're coming for the Saturday people and then they're coming for the Sunday people, right?
exactly.
We are just, we're not the main course here.
No.
We are a tiny little area in the Levant, right? In Israel, in the Middle East, which is 0.2% of a land mass of 22 other Arab countries. That's not the global caliphate if they capture Israel. That's just closing that little area off. And then where is
Yeah.
next? And this is what I mean about the lens of time, because we're talking about this. We're looking 30 years forward. The general population has got literally the attention span of 5 minutes. All they care about is who's going to win Love Island and Strictly Come Dancing, right? And what handbag they're going to buy and where they're going to go on holiday. That's
Yeah.
that's what takes their focus. But politicians who you would think would have a responsibility for a longer amount of time, no, their attention span, their lens of time is 4 to 8 years. Can I
Hmm.
get elected and can I stay elected? And they will do anything to gain power, even if it's selling your soul to the devil. So what do? They sold their soul to the devil.
Yeah.
Now you could do that politically, which they are doing. We've spoken, obviously we know about jihad. We've spoken about hijra. But what about the third leg of this? The third leg of this is the Arab world, or the Islamist side of the Arab world. The ideology is Iran, the bank is Qatar, and all of these other groups are just the foot soldiers. They also realize that dependency on oil is decreasing, but they have enough capital wealth to buy it. So they are buying everything. They're buying everything from the real estate to the major corporate companies to the universities to funding the students and the teachers, everything at every level. So their
And the
game is,
politicians.
and the politicians.
Even in the U.S. administration, the politicians.
There's no question. Ilhan Omar didn't arrive in in the US and do everything she's doing. We're already finding out. Obviously, there's lots of money that who knows where it's been misappropriated in Somalia. But regardless, the point is that, excuse me, the Qataris are playing two or three hands simultaneously. This brings me back to the World Cup. On the one hand, they're sport washing themselves and putting on these amazing, grandiose events that the whole world can marvel on. I mean, even then, at the same time, whilst having slave laborers who are dying, and no one seems to care because it's going to look beautiful on television. And FIFA clearly don't care. They sold out to the Russians and the Qataris when they awarded them the World Cup. But they're doing so much more, and it's not even necessarily the Qatari government. The Qatar only has 300,000 people. Right? But they have families, and they are super wealthy families. Everyone in Qatar has a pension that makes them super wealthy, not to mention the super wealthy families, right? They're the ones that are funding it. They're the ones that are doing through every which way. Whether it's sport, and the universities thing is the most scary thing of the lot.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this true story, because I spoke about the fact that I'd been active and politically aware over time. So I was always looking forward. So what I'm telling you now is 10 years ago, okay, roughly 9 or 10 years ago. I was in where you are now in Florida, in Boca Raton, our friend's house. They held an event which was against BDS. And they had many, many people coming and speakers, and it was in their house. It was around Hanukkah, actually. Little did I know, I didn't know what I was going into. I just got an invitation, and I went straight from the tennis court wearing tennis clothes. And everyone was there wearing suits and ball gowns. And anyway, it was quite embarrassing. But one of the speakers was Ron DeSantis, who's the current, obviously, governor of Florida. And they were talking about BDS, and me not being shy, despite my clothing, I put my hand up and I said, Mr. DeSantis, this is all great. What you guys are doing to fight BDS is fantastic, but this isn't your problem. You've got a far bigger problem. Take it from me. I live across the pond in the UK. What you've got going on in universities is going to be your problem. They are the legislators and the politicians and the journalists and the you of tomorrow. And if you don't get hold of that, that's going to be the big problem. Before you know it, I'm summoned over to talk to him and his wife in her red velvet ball gown whilst I'm wearing tennis clothes. And we had a whole conversation about it. But why am I telling you this? This was 10 years ago. And then you fast forward to when he was running for the GOP nomination, and he was, there was a few of them, obviously Trump included, and Nikki Haley, and everyone was talking, Rubio, who I'm a big fan of. And he starts talking about universities. And I was like, I wonder if I was, in his ear, if he remembers that conversation. I don't know. But point being, look what's happened since. Every university, wherever you go, and this is the next generation, these are the people. So if you join the dots of everything that we've just spoken about, you've got the migration of people and the ideology that goes with it, okay? And then you've got the indoctrination that goes now into the schools and everything and the universities here. And you won't believe, it's not just universities. I've been sent from teachers, school books, UK, 10-year-old school books with the stories. And the stories are true act of kindness from Palestine, and a story from Afghanistan, and a story from Sudan, all Muslim stories.
This is right now. This is not
right now. This is 2 months ago.
No.
It's I just got sent it, right, by a Jewish teacher who works in a Catholic school. She's the only Jew there, and she didn't know what to do about it. She didn't want to lose her job. But then the other thing that we've got going on outside of the universities and the education stuff is they are instructed, and this is part of Hijra, right? They are instructed to take every job in public office you can get. If you get a job in the local council or in whatever, a contractor or a policeman or a teacher or a lecturer, it doesn't matter what, as long as you're in that public service space and you take those jobs, we will change it from within. And now they're doing it. Now they're doing it. We have reached such a level in the UK that the lunatics are running the asylum. And I was at the forefront of that, in a way, when the Maccabi Tel Aviv, the Israeli football team, was due to come here and play Aston Villa in Birmingham. And the local, Islamist Jew-hating mob basically dictated to the police that you can't have them here because they were basically threatening to do a pogrom. They spun that story like it's because of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, because of what happened in Amsterdam, where they were ambushed and there was a pogrom. They tried to make it like, and it was all a lie, and everything's been exposed, and heads are going to roll in the police. But the point, and I've been on TV myself talking about it, because it's just crazy now that we've abdicated, or the police have abdicated all responsibility for public order. Like, they're too scary for us to deal with. This is so, and I'm maybe a bit more emotional about this, because I saw something this morning which blew my mind. And it's from Sydney. And there's a Jewish woman and her husband. She's telling the story because she was there of what was going on. I don't know if you've seen it. And she's shouting.
With Erin Muller, no?
No, this is
Wasn't
on
she?
their remote. Oh, I don't know. It was her and her husband. I didn't see the interviewer, but I just heard the story that she said that there were two Sydney police there with guns hiding behind a car.
Yeah, I actually saw the footage.
She was shouting to them to go, and she tried to take their gun to defend the people, and the two policemen were hiding behind a car. What's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is where we're heading. Like, and when you think about all of this, and then you think about Israel, and then you think about Iran, and you think about the rockets. I was in Israel, as you know, when the rockets were coming in, ballistic missiles and everything from Iran. And it's fairly active.
You had a video in the bomb shelter.
I've had a video in the bomb shelter, but also on TV. Right, it was live on TV, and I did various. And I said it on that interview that when we were being, I say, evacuated, I ended up coming back to the UK with my parents and the chief rabbi on an British Army or British Air Force A400 plane to Cyprus. And we sang Hatikva on the plane, which was amazing. But anyway, what I was going to say is that I'm coming back to the UK. There are ballistic missiles and rockets, and we're all in bomb shelters every day for 12 days. And my family and my friends in Israel are saying to me, do you feel safe like going back to the UK?
No.
That's an unbelievable question, right?
Yeah.
It's more scary to be here than it is to be in Israel when there's rockets going off. That's insane.
It's actually funny because I think Israel is the only country on earth when there is a war, every Jew goes there. Every Israeli flies back home when there's a war. Whereas you would think that people, when there's a war, would try to get out of the area. Israelis, when there's a war, they go back in. Why? Because they have families, because they go back to the army. And this is what people don't understand. We go back because everyone has a position in the army, and we need to man the lines and do our responsibility. And it's, I saw it, Yochai Sponder, the comedian, he had a thing about this. It's ridiculous. And you think about that and you go, oh my God, it's so true, because everywhere else, when there's a war, people run out, like they try to avoid the area. Yeah. For us, there's an engagement, there's war, we go back into it, I can't even explain it.
There's a reason, and you can explain it. And it's a reason that's to do with everything that Israel does. And that's everything. And I mean, in its technology, in its startup nation, and everything it's doing, there is a reason that everyone does that. And it's this: failure is not an option.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go back to if we fail. It's existential. And when it's existential, you have to fight to the death, because it is to the death. It's existential by its nature.
Yeah.
And that cultural ideology, that fact that there isn't another Jewish state for us to run to, it's the only one. And what will follow now is probably one of the biggest Aliyah movements in a generation or two. It's
Yeah.
going to follow from Europe, for sure, from the US, from other geographies, from South Africa, from
Yeah.
South America. There is going to be a huge push, aliyah, into Israel
Yeah.
because, those other places aren't safe. But it's the same thing, right? Failure is not an option. And you also
No.
can't fail in the countries that we live in. We are failing in the UK, right? The UK government is failing us. They feel like, incorrectly, that they can afford to fail. That's why they don't fight.
Yeah.
We know we can't. So it's a big part of Israel. Failure is not an option. It's a big part of Israel's DNA.
Wasn't
You
it
know.
Golda Meir that said that to Henry Kissinger? She
Yeah.
said,
Well, there is that. Yeah.
yeah.
So very true. And she said that we've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
But let me. Oh, I got goosebumps now because I'm having a bit of a memory moment of just after October 7th. So that was everywhere, and Biden was talking about it on television, and he mentions it in Golda Meir. And I end up on a Zoom call with Mark Rose, who's my co-founder in Ballistro, who you met.
Yeah.
He's English, but he's made Aliyah to Israel. He's a real character, but he's also great at speaking his mind, but articulating it in a very forthright way. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't mince his
Very,
words.
very Israeli.
Very easy.
Boom.
Well, being an Englishman in Israel, he always felt, I think, that he needs to overcompensate. So he does it, but he gets away. But he gets away with it because obviously he's doing it with an English accent.
Yeah.
But he said something to me about that speech, and he said, Max, I'll never forget it. I said to him, I wish you could record it and send it to me again. He said, I watched that, and I watched Biden say about Golda Meir saying that we've got nowhere else to go, and he said, no, Max. He said, you've got nowhere else to go. No,
Exactly.
I could cry now because he said it in such a way, and it's now so true. We have got nowhere else to go. Europe, the Jews in Europe have got nowhere else to go. Israel does have somewhere else to go. And that's why failure is not an option. And that's why we're all heading there.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, how do you're a trader, you're a financial guy.
Mhm.
Let's apply. I believe I know what's going to happen, but from your point of view, how do you see Europe and specifically England in 10 years' time? Like, give me a scenario that is, I mean, based on the math, based on the ability to analyze complex situation. Give me a scenario for England in 10 years' time.
So it's obviously one of the toughest questions, right? And I don't believe it's the same for every country in Europe. And maybe the UK eventually will be saved by two things. I'm not optimistic, by the way, but one is that it's an island, and the other thing was Brexit. So maybe there are some domestic controls that could be exercised at some point. I'm totally not optimistic, and I'll tell you a bit more about where I am optimistic and where I'm not. So I think Europe as a whole is so far gone, and it's open borders in respect of its land borders, unlike the UK, which is an island. So some countries like Belgium, certainly large swathes of France, and it pains me to say it because it's somewhere that I go a lot, but probably the most racist country in Europe, Spain, is in certain parts of Spain for sure, are so far gone. They are so infiltrated with ideology. It's petrifying. So, and the thing is, it's open. It's kind of open borders, right? It's not that difficult to get from Spain to Portugal to France to wherever. So we've seen this migration that really was the prelude, actually, to Brexit, right? So, forgive me for going back a little bit, but I think the dots join here, right?
It's very important.
This is all because of, to me, like one moment in history, one of the biggest sliding doors moment in history, which was a great idea, a romantic idea gone wrong, and that was Obama. Prior to Obama, the notion of Obama, we were all excited. We watched the inauguration, first US black president. It'd like to be full circle, right? And it was great, and we were all excited about it. And how wrong we were. He was the great appeaser. He was the soft hand. And he empowered every rogue state, rogue nation, terrorist organization, human rights abusers, every regime that you wouldn't, that you can think of was empowered by Obama's soft hand. Put aside from the fact that he sent them a shit ton of money, especially to the Iranians, $150 billion. But why do I mention that? Is that, because I'm linking this back to the UK, he was a real speaker against Brexit, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was like very anti-Brexit. I don't know why you're doing Brexit, etc. Obama caused Brexit, but he doesn't know it because no one's joining the dots. His soft hand empowered ISIS. ISIS did what they did in Syria. What happened in Syria saw the migration of Syrians by the tens of thousands through into Turkey. From Turkey, where do they go? Germany, right? That's the route. It's always been the route. There were
Mm-hmm.
thousands and thousands of men between age 18 and 45 on trains arriving in Munich and Dusseldorf and everywhere you could imagine in Europe. Okay. You're watching this in the UK. You've very different to when David Cameron promised a referendum, because that's the referendum was promised years earlier, but the world changed in that time over the Obama period. What happened? Everyone got scared. Now, did that shift 2% of the vote? Because it was only 2% of the vote. Definitely. Right. Including me.
Yeah.
So that, and I'm just showing you, like, everything is cause and effect. Everything is interlinked. So now we've got this situation where, Europe is imploding internally. Everyone's running scared. The Qataris are funding everything and buying everything. Everyone's got their eyes closed because they like the razzmatazz of them having the World Cup and the boxing and, driving flash cars around Mayfair. But at the end of the day, it's a takeover. Okay, it's an ideological takeover as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing that gives me
It's
a
what we
tiny
call
bit.
the quiet jihad. It's a quiet jihad.
Hijra.
You come
It's
in.
Hijra.
Yeah, it's a big immigration cycle, and it's a quiet jihad. You come in and you take over. You don't need to fire a bullet. You don't
Well, the
need to go to
Qataris
war.
own more property than the royal family in London.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. They own 25% or something of British Airways and Sainsbury's and Barclays Bank, and they're three things I use. I know it's there, like it's everything. It's unis, it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
But someone did say something to me the other day about the British people, and I hope it's true. Is that the British people are a quarter to midnight people. And I was like, what does this mean? I said, they'll be quiet, they'll be stummer, they'll do nothing. They don't want to offend, right? But at quarter to midnight,
They'll
when
wake
it's the
up.
writings on the wall, they'll wake up like a lion. I don't know if that's true. I am seeing some signs of it. And if I have the Second World War to go by, the British didn't come to save the Jews. That could have happened years earlier. The British Army really showed its mettle when it was knocking on the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they were on the beaches of Normandy. Okay, so
Exactly.
and so we have to hope that that's the case. The problem is the numbers are against us. This is like you say. You said it's complex, right? It's
Yeah.
complex financially. The numbers or numerically, the numbers are completely against us. So, and that is why they always say that peace is peace of the brave. Tell me a brave European leader. One.
No,
No,
none
there
of them.
isn't one. There
None of
isn't
them.
one.
I mean, maybe Poland.
Yeah, Eastern Europe, Poland and Hungary,
Eastern Europe.
right?
Yeah.
Poland and Hungary.
Hungary.
Yeah, not that they've got their own issues with other versions of racism.
Yeah.
We're certainly aware
Whatever it
to what's
is.
going on. Yeah.
Romania
Sorry?
Romania didn't take in a lot of
Yeah,
people.
Romania. Funnily enough, because despite being a Muslim country, Albania as well, and Azerbaijan
Also,
to an extent.
yeah, Azerbaijan is very
Yeah.
against Muslim immigration. Azerbaijan is a Muslim country, and it's against Muslim immigration.
Well, so, and maybe this nicely joins everything that you just asked. So, and it's a couple of talks I've been to this last week, actually, including Inon, the Jewish Dawa, who's amazing, and Noor Dahari, who's a Muslim here,
Amazing
who I know
people.
well. Amazing people. And so the Muslim world is split in two. right? And it's not about moderates. There's no such thing as moderates. There's traditional Muslims and Islamist Muslims. Traditional actually are very pro-Jewish. Their names are Musa, which is Moses, and Dawood, which is David, and Ibrahim, which is Abraham.
Exactly.
And
And
actually,
Yaqub.
yeah, Yaqub, all of those names, right? And so the true Quran and not the interpretations that follow are that they practice are very much the Jews are the people of the land, Bnei Israel, right?
You're right.
Um, and that part of the world, which is like the UAE and is like Dubai and various other countries, they are completely intolerant to the Islamist ideology. You
Yeah.
cannot fly a Palestinian flag in
No.
Dubai or UAE. You cannot, right?
Right.
And the notion of Palestine, they know the truth. Okay, and there are amazing people from the UAE, like L'Oreal Sharif and Amjad Tar, who do amazing things and are brilliant at explaining the history of this.
Mhm.
So they're completely intolerant to it. All of the tolerance for Islamist ideology is in the West. It's where they've sent everyone. This is the Hijra. And I say
Right.
the West, it's not just Europe, right? It's Canada, it's clearly Australia. And,
Yeah.
and I mean, Dearborn in
Until
Michigan.
recently, the U.S.
Well, this
Look
is what I'm
at
saying.
Dearborn, just as you
Dearborn,
said.
Dearborn in Michigan. What on earth? And how far does it have to go before people wake up and defend their own? Now, they're starting to realize, but the numbers are so big. And the thing is, unlike Israelis who have had to fight the existential wars, Americans have had nobody in the West has fought a war on their own soil
Yeah.
since the Second World War.
Exactly.
No one. There's never been a war here or
I mean,
anywhere
even the
else,
U.S. had not fought a war on its own soil in the Second World
ever.
War. They sent people
But no,
out.
the US never have, apart from a civil
Never.
war, never.
Yeah.
Right? The British Army. Okay, we had the Falklands. They fought it at the Falklands near Argentina.
Exactly.
No
Right.
one's fought it on their own borders. So this is a really, really big issue because they are not in position to fight. Now you have to take first mover advantage, and you have to see the writing on the wall and do things. Right? That's whether it's
Yeah.
immigration and whether it's various laws.
I mean, I
Everyone's asleep.
believe, to quote a good friend served for years in the Israeli intelligence. And I called him and I asked him about the situation that I saw. And I said, why is no one doing anything? And he asked me, did anyone die? And I said, no. He said, so give it a minute. And then when the first person dies, there'll be questions and then people will mobilize. So I think that unfortunately, we don't need to have, we would ideally shouldn't have, but unfortunately it will take more situations like Bondi Beach to happen in different countries for different governments to start realize that this is not what they wanted. Now the crazy thing is that you have online chats for Muslims who have immigrated to Australia and to the UK. You can go on Telegram and they're sending baklawa pictures like to each other, basically Arab sweets picture to each other after Bondi Beach massacre, which basically means that they're, and it's like giving a high five, it's like, well, very well done.
There was
And no one is,
almost another one today, right?
yeah,
5 guys
almost
got
another
arrested
one.
today in Bondi for a repeat.
Yeah.
I hear what
And I would bet my money on the fact that the reason that they stopped it was because of some organization like Mossad or CIA started saying, look at these guys, because I don't think the Australians have what it takes to pull off that, to stop an operation like that. We have that. We have teams in the intelligence space that are dedicated to do that continuously, and they do that very successfully.
Well, you just said something interesting. I've been thinking about that since you said it. You said that your friend said something about, did anyone die yet?
Yeah.
And yes, and also you said, well, there'll be more, and there's more of these things, and And then I remembered that I saw something in the last 24 hours, and don't hold me to the numbers, but historically, there have been 65,000 terrorist
Terror
incidents
attacks since 9/11.
since 9/11. 65,000.
Mm-hmm.
98% of it under an Islamist ideology.
Yeah.
65,000. So did anyone die yet? Maybe you can send him a message and say, well, I don't know, did they?
Yeah.
You tell me. They did.
You know what people do is they just misqualify this. I just read a piece by a great friend that has an amazing technology. He's working with intelligence, very boutique and well-known intelligence agencies. He has a system and a technology that helps. Basically, you just need to give him a phone number, and I can tell you who you are. And obviously, everything is legal, but they have a very like there's a system that does that, and and so he had wrote a piece about honor killing. So honor killing, for people who don't know what it is, in the Arab ideology, depending which kind of Arabs,
The
if
Shia ideology. Yeah.
yeah, but not necessarily. I
The
also know Bedouins.
Sharia
I know,
ideology. So,
yeah, the Sharia
yeah.
ideology. I know. I personally know Bedouins who have done that. I personally know a
Yeah.
person who did honor killing, basically meaning if your sister disgraces the family honor, whatever, because she had sex with a non-Muslim, or because she went out with someone from a different tribe, or she went out with whatever, you basically have to kill her. So I personally know a guy who had brought his sister's head to his father, chopped off her head, and the guy had nightmares for the rest of his life. Like, I know him. I actually met him, and I spent a lot of time with him. And what has happened within honor killing? So the last honor killing, I think, in the U.S. was either in 2009 or 2005. But what happened since then? They started qualifying it as domestic violence, and they're not calling it by its name. So when you can't call it by its name, you can't identify the threat, you can't handle the threat. But there is a belief inside the intelligence space that since then, over 15,000 women had lost their lives in the U.S. by honor killing. And this is being reported as domestic violence, which it is domestic violence.
It's a form of domestic violence.
It's a form of domestic violence. But when you send a brother to kill off his sister, that's a very specific, and you're a Muslim, that is a very specific type of of domestic violence. And if you look at any Arab country, people don't know that, but if you look at any other country, this is a very common practice. This is how they do it.
How they're doing it is one thing, and importing it is another.
And it's here.
It's here. But you said something really important. It's not just about that, but everything. No one wants to call it what it is.
Exactly, because then you get labeled Islamophobe or racist.
The BBC refused to call Hamas a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Even on October 7th.
The BBC are a special kind of wacko, like cuckoos.
BBC are no media organization in the world has more blood on its hands than the BBC.
That's totally correct.
You could join direct dots between the actions of the BBC over decades and how people die because of it. Yeah. If you legitimize terrorism and you demonize groups and you report, and now, as we know, make up reports to do, like they have done even with Trump, right? And you do that. The thing is with the BBC that's different to most other media organizations, if not all, is BBC hide behind the fake neutrality. Mm-hmm. And that's given them, put themselves in a position to be the Gestamper to the world. Like if the BBC says it, then it must be true. Yeah. And on that basis,
you have a British accent and it sounds fabulous, and
everybody can report it though, right? And that's in social media. So the BBC gives validity, and the BBC are the ones with the biggest agenda.
Right.
But what they're not realizing, and I've been having this conversation, and I said to you, even with some journalists here, way before October 7th, saying that the media, the mainstream media, have got blood on their hands. And it's like, why? It's because you are the vital cog in the machine that feeds the misinformation, that feeds the beast, that feeds war, anti-Semitism, conflict, everything. Why? Because war sells. Now, people love to say to me, yeah, but the BBC isn't commercial. It's a free service, right? It's not
Yeah.
commercial. It doesn't have advertising. I'm like, no, that's not true. Domestic BBC, we pay through our TV licenses, but BBC World is a global service where they create war sells. Peace is
Yes.
the news for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Pictures of dead children and rubble is pictures for 2 years.
I
And they
remember when I was a kid in the first Lebanese war, that was 84. I remember that the Israeli media had censorship about what's going on in Lebanon because they didn't want to report on it. And we had rigged up an antenna all the way to the top of my parents' house, and we would listen to the BBC because the BBC was like the icon of truth saying or
BBC World Service.
yeah,
It's
it
called BBC
was,
World Service.
this is where you go to if you want to hear what's going on, and for a fact it's true.
It's the most morally bankrupt organization there is and the only organization, and I know I made reference earlier to that video interview that I did, that kicked all of my activity off. That's the bit that I talk about. The BBC and the UN are the two most complicit entities in the
Yeah,
dying of people in Gaza. The
exactly.
people dying in Gaza are because of the BBC and because of the UN. Just
Which is
imagine
ridiculous because if you think about this, the UN started to prevent the reoccurrence of another world war. That's the origin
yeah,
story of the UN. That's where they came from. And then eventually you have UNRWA, which is the United Nations Refugee, blah, 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 whatever. By the way, the Palestinians are the only refugees on the planet that have their own agency, sponsored by the UN. That
that's
is
not
then,
that's not entirely true.
no?
I was just about to tell you, no. And when the UNRWA was formed, there was two organizations pretty much at the same time. The other one was UNCRA,
Mm-hmm.
and UNCRA was the same as UNRWA, but for Korea. And there
Okay.
were, I can't remember the number, I think it might have been 2 or 4 million Koreans that were displaced. And I think it was 2 million Koreans were displaced. And they re-assimilated them, as a relief agency within a 4-year period. I can't remember if it's 2 or 4, 4 and 2, but that's
Yeah.
roughly the number. So by 1952, it was done. Okay. And at the same time, UNRWA was formed, and it's
Mm.
75 years on, and it's not. So it just shows you this is a systematic abuse. This is financially motivated, and everyone's got their hands in the till, as we say, in England,
Yeah,
in cash machine.
exactly.
But it's just to think that those two organizations that essentially want to be the closest supporters of freedom for the Palestinian Arabs, not Palestinian people, Palestinian Arabs, yet they're the ones most complicit, and they don't understand it. Just something I just remembered when I met you, and we went down to the Nova Festival site. The first conversation I had was with a Sky News reporter called Alistair Bunkle.
Yes. Yeah.
And it wasn't one that I recorded when I was talking to him, but I got in a bit of a debate with him, and he said a couple of things that really upset me. So I really let rip. And
I
it
think
came from
one of us had it recorded. I need to figure out where
maybe,
it
I'm not
is.
sure. I recorded something after it, but the
Yeah.
actual interview, I don't know. But the thing that I said to him is, and that's why his answer upset me. The thing that I said to him was that unless you're on one side or the other of this, so unless you're an Israeli, right, or Jewish
Yeah.
Israeli or whatever, or you're an Arab, Palestinian Arab, if you're not on one of these two sides, the reality is you cannot understand the psyche of the people.
Right.
Because it's not what you're reporting is what you're seeing. You're not reporting what's in their hearts and what's in their minds and what they've grown up with culturally and ideologically, and you can't see that. So if you you think that dead babies is your story and rubble is your story and war is your story, but the reality is you're passing judgment on your imagery. But the psyche, let's be truthful about it. Israel loves life. Israel will give any land to do peace with true peace with anybody. And
Yes.
Israel, there is nothing in Judaism or in Jewish culture or Jewish ideology that would ever seek to kill another. And it's
Right.
a fundamental difference between Judaism and Islam and Christianity, by the way. Okay, never in Jewish history has that ever been a feature. Whilst on the other side, and that's also in Christianity, it's not true. Okay, the reason that we are one of the oldest religions, but only 16 million people, is because we never proselytized. We didn't send missionaries. We didn't force anyone to convert. It was,
No.
by way of the womb, by way of the mother. That's
On the
it,
contrary, it is, I think, the hardest religion to get into.
for sure. Because you
My
have to be
grandfather
really wanted.
was born a Christian Catholic and had
Yeah,
converted. That is
yeah,
a long process. It is
long.
not
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, for sure. But my point is, it wasn't by force. Okay,
No.
and this comes from a very cultural thing, okay, in a religion. So, and actually, we don't even have to say it about Islam. We can say it about Christianity. Things that sound the same but are not the same. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Judaism says, "Don't do unto others as you don't want done unto you." Plus minus.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christianity says, "Do unto others as you want done unto you."
Mm-hmm.
Now they sound the same, but they're not, because you're not doing something that you don't want done unto you in Judaism. So that's not very offensive. You're not confrontational with anyone. You're
Right.
respecting them, and if you're not going to like it, you're not going to do it to them. It stands to
Right.
reason. Christianity says, "Do unto others," as in, if you think it's good for them, you should do it to them, and you
Yes.
force the religion on them, or
Yeah.
whatever it
If you
is that you're
think your
forcing on.
religion is good, then you force it on others.
Yeah. And that's confrontational, that's wars, that's everything else. And obviously that succeeded over missionaries over the globe. And, Christianity is obviously 2.6 billion people.
Yeah.
Islam is close to 2 billion people. Judaism is 16 million. Nobody that doesn't know that number believes it when you tell them, right? So it's very non-confrontation.
Yeah.
But you'd think that would actually motivate anyone to, I'm not saying defend you, but certainly not attack you. I mean, how
Yeah.
Neanderthal is that? That's like hundreds of years ago. And in the day like today, in an era of today with information and everything, this, I don't know. I don't actually know what's got into the European mindset. It's very, very confusing. Israel's built on liberal ideology, and the liberals are against Israel and for people that murder, rape, behead, kill gays, do everything that they do. Yeah, for some reason, the Jew is the enemy. Like, I really, it's very confusing for us.
Yeah.
Very,
It
for
is
all of
very
us.
confusing. I mean, it's very confusing for everyone because you go, I don't get it. I'm the bad guy. We've never started a war. We've always had to go into it because someone else did something else,
Towards
something
self-defense.
to us. It was always to defend ourselves. We never started anything. I mean, I can't say that I think that is a correct way to go about it. I think we should be more proactive about things. But still, even in Israel right now, Arab Israelis have 500, allegedly have 500,000 weapons, illegal weapons. They're amassing weapons. They have more weapons than the Israeli army altogether. And
And if they turn,
if they turn and they don't
it's on
serve
the
in the
inside.
army, they don't even speak Hebrew. They don't have alliance, definitely don't
They used to.
have
They
any
used
alliance
to.
to the country. They used to, they used
Yeah.
to, but recently they don't. What will happen? Some of these villages are literally 15 minutes on a scooter from Tel Aviv. And these
Yeah.
are your taxi drivers, your Uber Eats driver, your whatever, your pharmacist, and some of them are amazing people. I have my dentist is an Israeli
Many
Arab.
of them are, no question.
They're
There's
just
no.
amazing people, but like I saw a video on YouTube, like and this is another thing that I don't get. I don't get, like, the Israeli Kan 11, like the 11th, whatever, the national,
Yeah,
like
channel. Yeah,
equivalent,
I watched that.
Channel 11, the national broadcaster doesn't do any pieces in English. So you can't understand what's going on in the country, outside of the country. They're doing these pieces
No
about,
one is. Only I-24.
yeah. And they're doing these pieces about how the Negev, the desert, is full of illegal guns, and not like pistols. I'm talking about machine guns, 50 cal machine guns.
Where are they
And
getting them from?
they're getting it from Egypt and Jordan, and they have 50 cal machine guns, and you can hear the reporter is standing in a house in a house in a kibbutz, but in a Jewish family, and you can hear the 50 cal going boom boom boom, maybe a mile away, and they call the police, and the police says, yeah, they're just testing their weapons. They're testing it for what? What are they testing a 50 cal machine gun for? Like, for what? They're shooting birds? They're going fishing. What do they need 50? Like, I don't have a 50 cal
It's
machine
called
guns. Why?
appeasement.
Yeah.
Right?
And they continuously
it's called
appease.
appeasement.
There was a big article. There was a big piece about the financial terror in the north of Israel, and they forcefully tried not to say the word Hamula, which is a tribe or the bigger family, because they knew that this would tell people that the crime is Arab crime. And they continuously try to kind of, appease everyone. And no one is saying, look, guys, this is a dangerous situation. And the next time, I think it was 2002 when the riots started in Jaffa and Accra, the next time this happens, you'll have 100 to 200,000 weapons in play. Who's going to stop that?
You know what Churchill said about appeasement,
and still, we feel safer in Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. you know what Churchill said about appeasement, right?
I don't remember.
An appeaser is he who feeds the crocodile in the hope that he'll be eaten last.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's
a good one.
Exactly what is going on across the world. And like you've just said, even in Israel to an extent, and across the world. But the opportunity to ever win the information war is it's out of reach. It's out of reach. And that's what's really, really worrying. I am only thankful, excuse me, that the Arab world or the traditional Arab world do outlaw it. They don't allow that ideology. And I'm more optimistic about Israel, the Abraham Accords, and that part of the Arab world from a peace point of view than I am between Israel and Europe. Okay?
Yes, that's actually funny.
It's bizarre,
ridiculous,
right?
Yeah.
The only ones that really are maybe slightly awake to it is Germany, for obvious reasons. So they go above and beyond, and they've been pretty vocal by and large. Okay.
Yeah.
But the rest of the people are so lazy and so fickle, and bits of information that this isn't a new thing. Okay. I'm going to tell you this story. I don't know if you know this. This goes back hundreds of years. But obviously there was no internet, but the information war, not the information war, the information, a lot of stuff that went across the world was art. Art was a medium that, transcended, across the globe.
Right.
So I don't know if you've ever heard of, or I'm sure you have, of the fact that many people believe that Jews had horns. And I know it was used by the Nazis to doing the caricatures and putting horns on Jews.
Yeah.
And even to the 40s and the 50s and the 60s here, even in the UK, outside of London, where they'd never met a Jew, they used to chase the kid around the playground and see if they've got horns.
Right.
But where does that come from? Do you know why that is?
Isn't it from the statue of Moses?
Correct. So it's the statue of Moses coming down from Mount Sinai, has just seen God. He's holding the 10 Commandments, and in the famous statue by
Michelangelo,
he's got Moses holding the 10 Commandments, and he's got horns, and the two little horns. And the reason that he had that is because of a mistranslation of the text. The
Right.
text in Hebrew in the Bible says, because he's just seen God and he was glowing, and it says karnei ol panav, which
Yeah.
means the light rays of his face. And the
Karnu
word
panav.
ray and horn is the same word, mistranslated
Exactly.
to horn, and he put horns on the statue. For hundreds of years, people thought the Jews
Yeah,
had
I mean, the
horns.
statue is still there. I think I was in that museum about 3
Yeah,
years ago, and I
yeah,
showed it to my kids, and they were like, "Why did
yeah.
Moses have horns?"
And it was only Michelangelo who used the translation, not done by him, by someone else. I can't remember the name of the writer that did the translation, but he used that translation, and it was just, I think, even innocently. But look at the knock-on effect that for hundreds of years. And this
Yeah.
is a problem. This boils back to now everything we've been talking about. One thing that we don't own, and we don't own the narrative. We don't know. We've lost the narrative. We've not been strong in Israel as a company, as a country, and leadership and forward thinking at times where actually there's no war. You know, that's the time sometimes to do things to reclaim the narrative. I promise you, Uri, I am not saying this in any hindsight whatsoever. This is not me telling you this now after what's happened the last 2 years. 7, 8 years ago, I met here in London. Her name was Sharon Barley. She was the deputy ambassador to
Mm,
Israel in the UK. Just an
okay.
event sitting next to her, and I wrote her an email. I've still got the email, and wrote a whole email about language and narrative.
Mm-hmm.
We have lost the sound bites. We have lost the narrative. We have lost the words. There are no consistency in anything that we say.
Right.
Okay, and now you've heard me do it. I never say Palestinians. I say Palestinian Arabs. I'm not giving them the word. They don't own it.
They don't
I
own
don't
it.
say the West Bank. I say Judea and Samaria. I don't even say Judea and Samaria, by the way. I say Judea and Samaria where Jews come from. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
need that to join the dots so that people understand. This needs to be
I
consistent
mean,
through every
Judea, like Judea, as in Jew.
Jews. I know
Yeah.
it's mind blowing. Yeah. I did a very short 1 minute, or a 30-second video in Israel actually that says a question for the Palestinian Arabs, and it was, if the Romans hadn't changed the name from Judea to Palestine, would they now identify as Judeans? Right?
Judeans.
They would, right? Because the
Yeah.
word Palestine didn't exist prior to that. So what would they be claiming? They're
Yeah.
Judeans?
I
Like
mean,
it's
just as a side piece, my dad was born in Israel in 1944, and he had a Palestinian birth certificate.
so does my mum.
So
Yeah.
he is more Palestinian than anyone else. You know, and
Free Palestine was a Jewish saying.
yeah,
Palestine Airways was a Jewish airline.
yeah. The
The
Palestine
money,
Post is the Jerusalem Post.
yes. And people send you those pictures, of the coins,
Yeah,
the Palestine coins from 1927. Like, yeah,
yeah.
the
It
letters are in Hebrew. And it says
it
Aleph
was,
Yud, which means Eretz Israel, the land of
yeah,
Israel.
Palestine
And
I, Eretz Israel.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if at the end of the day, it just shows you about being selective. Right? If you want to be selective about truth and about history, that you will not reason with anything. And whatever evidence you'll put in front of you, at some point, they will attempt to debunk it, or they'll just run away, or just accuse you of genocide, right? This will be
Yeah,
the default answer. But
you're a baby killer.
it's also symptomatic of their consistency of narrative, even if
Hmm.
it's complete BS. They're consistent. You ask them what day of the week it is, and they'll say that they're not going to tell you Tuesday. They're going to say they're killing our children and our women. So they're going to
Yeah,
say. And everyone answers the same. And in Israel, we always want to explain, and every spokesman and different language and different. Now we've lost the narrative.
yeah.
You know.
I mean,
Um,
also the like, I have a big issue with there's the concept is called in Hebrew hasbara, which is to explain. They even have a hasbara unit in the army, which is literally saying the explaining unit. And the fact that you need to explain what you're doing just means, in a way, that you're being blamed at something, and now you need to explain why you did it. It's like a child stealing a cookie. Why'd you do it? I was hungry. But we don't need to explain what we're doing. And that's the crazy thing. I mean, we literally have not done anything.
Well, it's not trying to explain, not explaining, but trying to explain has not done anything for us at all.
Nothing.
We
On the
have got,
contrary.
yeah, look, we have got a problem, right? We've got a problem. We've got a numbers problem, as we said before. At the end of the day, we're 16 million people. And Bella and Gigi Hadid, those two, toxic, call for genocide, allegedly Palestinian Arab, models or whatever they are, have got 185 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
So they've got 12 more followers than there are Jews in the world. And what they post gets reposted. We're not there. Do as much
No.
Hasbara as you want,
Yeah.
or the only thing we can do is actually win. Because we have no option. It comes back to what we said in the beginning, right? Failure is not an option.
Mm-mm.
All we do is find solutions, okay, and then we have to make them work. And if they don't, we will. We do that in our tech, we do that in our medicine, and we do that in our cybersecurity, and we do that in everything that goes on in that world. Why do they succeed? Why is Israel the startup nation? Because failure is not an option. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's existential. And that culturally comes through everything, through the religion, to the army, to how, to what we study, to the army, and to business. Right?
Yeah.
Culturally, we said we don't accept anything. We debate everything. Right? What does the yeshiva do? They sit and they debate. Jews ask questions, debate.
Yeah.
Argue. Even argue, great, fine. But you know what? That's how you move forward. That's how you improve.
Mm-hmm.
If you accept everything submissively, which obviously is what Islam means, right? Islam means submission to the will of Allah. Submission. So if you're submissive, you don't move forward at all. You just accept everything as is.
You don't question anything.
We question everything. Not that only question everything, we are empowered to question. Now, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it and actually ask you to qualify it, because I never went to the Israeli army. But my understanding always was that if you're in an army unit and there is, your commanding officer is giving you a certain instruction and you have an idea, you have a thought, you are empowered to say it, share it, let your commanding officer or your group hear it. They can take a view. So, you might, the commanding officer said, right, we're going through the river here. And then you say, listen, I've seen a bridge down the road. Maybe we can go through and go over the bridge. Commanding officer said, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Actually, we've checked the bridge. It's laden with explosives.
Exactly.
We're going through the river. But you have got that ability to do that, right?
100%.
No one has a monopoly on ideas. And that one thing, first of all, that one thing saved Israel. It saved Israel in previous wars. In wars, not only because of what Israel did, by the way, it's because of what the Arabs didn't do. They had the opportunity to cut across Israel, right? I think in 1967, actually.
In an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, and they stopped. And they stopped because their instructions were to stop. There was no one opposing them, and they stopped because they don't have that. They're submissive. So, that's the kind of history, really, of from Judaism into the country, into the army, and of course out of the army, which is the most efficient recruitment company. And maybe we can switch topic onto Israel as the startup nation or connect it to it. Is that the army is the most efficient recruitment company in the world.
Exactly.
It profiles and qualifies anyone, so we know who's better, who's cybersecurity, and who's a fighter. Who's 8200?
And also, it is the biggest social mobility agency in the country. You can come in from a poor family, average student, and if you're a hard worker enough in your company, whatever it is, infantry, Air Force, Navy, you will be sent to officers' course and become an officer. And you will be eligible, if you're good enough, you will be eligible to be sent and get a degree, a bachelor's degree in the top universities in the country, and come back to the army and give it a couple of more years, and then you left, and now
that's the efficiency, right?
Yeah.
That's the efficiency of the profiling and being the most efficient recruitment company.
Exactly.
But look what happens there. What's the age? 18.
Yeah.
Come out at 21. What is an English young man doing, or girl at age 18?
Getting drunk.
Go to university and get drunk for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And their application of what they're studying is not in a real life situation. In
No.
Israel, they go and do the army. If they want to go and study after the army, they're 21 and their application is now real life, which means that what they're doing is not about going and getting drunk and throwing up, in a pub. It's actually about real life, and failure from your army is not an option. You take
Right.
that into the tech world now and solution finding and everything that Israel does, which it excels at. Why? Because failure is not an option. Don't
Right.
tell me I can't do it. Find a way. There has to be a way. Find a way. And
Exactly.
it's so in the DNA, Uri, that even if you're a tech, and I have a certain level of tech. I've been working in the tech industry and startups, but I'm not a tech person myself, as in a developer or coder or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Neither
What
am
I
I.
do know from speaking to people is they say that when they've got a development company here in the UK or they're outsourcing or whatever, and they say, "Can you build me this?" They will build it, and then they'll come back to you and they'll give it to you and say, "Here it is," and you'll say, "Yeah, but it doesn't work." And say, "Yeah, but that's what you asked me to build,
Yeah.
right? So I built what you asked me to." In Israel, that would never happen. You say,
No.
"Build me this," and they'll say, "Actually, look, that might not work, but if you do this, this might work," and then you evolve. And that is the secret sauce that is in the DNA of everything to do and that we've spoken about for the last hour and a half almost, is that
Yeah.
failure, and I started there, failure is not an option. We can't
Exactly.
fail on the battlefield. We can't fail in our we can't fail in our tech. We can't fail in anything. And that's why people go back to Israel when there's a war, because failure is not an option.
Yeah.
And we have to hang our hat on that. Otherwise we are, we'd be cannon fodder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little story. When I was in the army, we had trained with American, with this very specific American, whatever group, and these people came in. They were in their 30s. I was 20, right? And we had gone through a specific drill, and they looked at us and they go like, "How the hell did you do that? Like, how did you come up with that idea?" And they were doing textbook, right? I'm not going to go into what it was, but they were doing textbook the way it was written in the army books, which some of them were written 100 years ago, and we were
Not fit for purpose.
yeah. I mean, it's good. It's really good. I mean, some like the let's put it like that: the top special forces, data, Navy SEALs, Team 6, and obviously the Israeli top tier units are at the level where they really compete with each other. I obviously am biased. I think we are better, but they are really good. But then you have the lower ranks or the different other units where it's very textbook the way they do it, and you don't have a lot of thought invested into it, and also because we have we think with the scarcity. We think we don't have all the equipment. We don't have all what we need. We need to come up with a clever solution to be able to pull this off without having billions and billions of dollars in budget. Right?
Do you
I
mean?
mean,
Do you mean? Do you mean beepers?
yeah, I'm not saying what beepers or
No, I'm
whatever. Like
joking. I'm like
yeah,
beepers is a good example of you don't have to blow
yeah,
everything out. You come up with a solution, and then you got
yeah.
beepers.
And for the Americans, again, the top tier units are amazing. They're really out there. There are maybe 6 top tier units on the planet. 2 of them are Israeli, but you're always under budget and undermanned. We're always less in people and less in budget, and we have to come up with the solutions for similar situations that others encounter, and come up with a really great idea to be able to pull it off. And
And why do
in
we? And
fact,
why do we do that?
because we don't have another option, this is the only
Failure is not an
chance you get to
option,
do it. Right? You
and it's
don't.
on our doorstep. It's on our. It's in our.
Yeah.
It's in our. It's not a faraway war.
No. And when I went to the army, I went to defend my parents' house because there was an enemy, literally 8 miles away, who were shooting rockets at us on a daily basis for around 3 years. That's what it is. And that's why we went to the army, because, hey, we need to stand up and we need to take action and we need to take responsibility for our place. And we went to the army like that. I mean, there was also a different era of leadership. I will give you that. We had different leaders back then, which I hope will return one day. But still, we were there stepping up, because if they win, we die. It's very simple. Whereas in other countries, I mean, in the US, you ship people to Afghanistan. And also, this is where I think personally where PTSD comes from, because you don't see the moral connection to what you're doing on the battlefield to the livelihood of your family.
The psyche, like I said to the journalist, don't understand that psyche.
You don't understand that I'm doing this because I know that my parents will die if I'm not going to do it. There's a moral connection. There's a moral obligation. Whereas some kid who's even Special Forces US, when they deploy in Afghanistan and they do whatever they need to do, sometimes they don't see the connection between this guy in Afghanistan, and then they can't connect the dots. And 9/11 was a breakthrough event with regards to that, because they could suddenly connect the dots. This guy over there is doing that thing over there.
Yeah, and 24 years later, that same city has Mamdani as a mayor,
which is the greatest. I don't even know what to call it. Yeah,
it's not even improbable. Like, if someone had ever told you that,
no,
you'd never, ever, ever believe
this
it.
is
So
this is a psyop. Like, my opinion, having seen, having intimate knowledge with that space, I would say that there is no other option than this being a huge psyop, where someone has invested billions of dollars to pull this off. There's no chance in hell this would have happened organically.
Well, okay, so PSYOP, in respect of, ultimately, what does that mean? It means influencing the voters, right? In one form or another. And again, this is all the stuff we're talking about. It's the movement of people. It's the infiltration of ideology. It's the complicity of liberal media, who are. The thing is with liberal ideology, and I'm no expert on it. Okay, I do believe in the horseshoe theory. That extreme left and extreme right are very closely correlated. The thing is with liberal ideology is I think its inherent principle is that all people are good, inherently good, and that anything else that they do is due to their circumstances.
Right.
And the reality is that is codswallop. A human being is a very English term, codswallop. Don't even know what it means, but it sounds good. But human beings are complex and they're flawed, and they have emotions, and they have all of the things that lead you to do things. So it's not about being inherently good, because it's not circumstances that, I don't know if he did it, but Rob Rayner's son, who then just murdered his parents. Right now, what is that? It wasn't because of his upbringing. It wasn't because he didn't have, wasn't privileged. It wasn't because he didn't have money. It wasn't because he didn't study. It's bad people. There are bad people, and you have to admit it. There are bad people. Right?
I mean, even if you take the normal theory of the 3% bad people in a 2 billion people religion, or on an 8 billion people planet, those are a lot of people. Legitimate bad people.
This lack of understanding of math, which we spoke about, is insane. When you talk about, and we can go back to like the Muslim world, okay, and then you can talk about the traditional Muslims and Islamists. And what are the numbers? Now, it's believed to be circa 25%, 20 to 30% are radicalized in some way. Yeah. But let's just cut that in half. Let's go with 10%.
Yeah.
10% is 200 million people.
Exactly.
200 million radical. That's greater than all of the armies of the world put together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is, why are people ignoring the math? There is a
I think it's
fantastic
just too much, too much to digest. It's easier to take your boat and go on the bay on the weekend than think about, oh my God, this
No doubt.
world is going to shit.
No doubt. Bury your head in the sand, live your life, buy your cars, go on your holidays, and what will be, will be. Brilliant. Right up until 1:45 when they knock on your door, right? This is what we were saying.
Yeah.
But today I saw an amazing video clip by Konstantin. I don't know if you know him, you would have seen him.
Yes. I love
With
him.
the apples. With the
Oh,
apples.
yeah.
Did you
It's
see it?
beautiful. It's a beautiful
It's
video.
gold. It's gold. I actually shared it today because to me it's gold. It's like, if you don't want to talk about it and you're too scared to talk about Muslims and you're still
Let's talk
Islam
about
and
apples.
Islamism, just talk about apples. You know, if all of the green apples, you've got green apples and red apples, and amongst the green apples there are a few apples that are poisonous, right? You need to not say okay, but in general, green apples are good. You have to find the rotten, poisonous, toxic, will kill you green apples. And you have to do everything you can to find them and do with them. And you will stop importing those apples from whichever country the farmers that are making them are. He did a brilliant explanation.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, why don't we just send that video clip to every leader around the world and say, just watch that. 90 seconds, and then you go and you decide. But if you've seen this video, you understand this ideologically, and you still choose to do what you're doing now, you still choose Mark Carney to do what he's doing in Canada, and Albanese in Australia, and this lunatic in Spain. I mean, I don't know what's going on in Spain. Ireland. What on earth is going on in Ireland? How have they lost their minds? I have no idea. I
guy
don't want
was
to say
complaining that there are
drunk.
not enough, there's too much white people. Right?
But it's everywhere, right? It's insane. So you know what? Send them the apples thing and let's talk tomorrow. And you know what? Sometimes things just need to be simple. Every plan, every solution, the basic, not how you get there, but the basic concept needs to be simple, right?
Yes.
Solutions are going to have to be simple. And it's only one person seems to understand it. When I know we're not going to get into that topic of talking about him, but I have to say the only person that understands that topic is Trump. Don't renegotiate a bad deal. There's no such thing as renegotiating a bad deal. You trash the deal and you start on a fresh foundation with the focus and goal of what the deal that you want to do. That's it. He does it with every item. He's done it in even in the tariffs. He didn't try and renegotiate tariffs and invite everyone. He said, your tariffs are 100%. Come speak. 78 countries sent their people on planes to America to renegotiate tariffs. That's how you do it. That's it's the only way you can do it. You know, and you need a madman to do it. So at least we got one.
Yeah, the thing is sometimes like I know a person who is one of the leading brains, at least in my opinion, in investing. Like this guy in value investing, this guy can spot value in a company 100 miles away, and he will tell you to invest, and you're going to make a lot of money with him, right? I'm not going to say his name, but he is super, super smart. And then we were watching the Merkel, the German chancellor, deciding to take on all these Syrian people. And I said, this is going to be a disaster. And he said, well, they're lacking working hands, so they need people to work. It's going to do amazing things for the economy. And you can't blame the guy for being dumb, because he is definitely not dumb. He is one of the smartest people I know on earth. The guy has made return on investment 50% in times where the market was going downhill, like the worst market. The guy, again, he's super, super smart. You can say legitimately, according to his statistics, you can say that he's, smarter as Warren Buffett. Smart as Warren Buffett. But he couldn't spot that. He couldn't spot the fact that if you bring that ideology into Germany, it will destroy the country. For him, it was just mathematics. You need working hands. They took in 1 million people. That's it. Problem solved.
Which is strange because conceptually, we understand why he would have thought that, but he
Yeah.
missed key parts of data, right? So the data matters. You know that whole thing. I'm slightly digressing, but I'll come back to it. But it's very famous, Daniel Kahneman, because
Yes.
the globally famous, psychologist or philosopher who obviously wrote a lot of the information that helps the Israeli army recruit, right? Because he understands that.
The game
And
theory,
but he
right? That's the
wrote
name
a
for it.
thing about intuition.
Mhm.
And the thing with intuition is that obviously intuition, don't intellectualize your gut, which is a line I learned from a friend in the States, right? You know. But his answer to that, and this is what your guy hasn't done, is delay your intuition. The trick is to delay your intuition till you have more data. Now, if he'd applied a little bit more data to his thought process, he would have said, well, if they come in, but we don't give them any benefits, we don't just feed them and give them and they're to do what they want, and they have to work or they go, then maybe they will work. And you know what? If they do work, they get paid, they have a better life, and maybe they'll choose a different route. There's some
Exactly.
logic. There's
Yeah.
some, but he didn't say that, right? He just said they're going to be late, but they're going to work. No, they're coming in and they freeload. They get all the benefits. They get put up in properties, in hotels. They get fed. They
Yeah.
get clothed, and then they bring their families.
Mhm.
That's hijra,
Yeah.
right? And eventually they'll take a job in public office, in a school, right?
Ay.
It's a scary time.
The good news, in my opinion, is that
Oh, give me good news.
the good news, in my opinion, and we'll wrap up with this, is that I think, and I just interviewed a person, Liron Rose. He's a very, very savvy investor and a high tech founder himself, and he says he in his opinion, Israel is going to go into one of its best years ever. High tech is coming back big time. Definitely, with all the immigration to Israel, we will have. I mean, real estate is going up. Tech companies are going up. Everything is going to go up. And the we didn't finish this year as bad as we thought.
Yeah. I went to an event which was a deputy governor of the Bank of Israel was there, and he gave the information, over time, and the resilience of the economy, and it is true. I remember.
Spectacular.
I remember actually, and it wasn't about October 7th because this was prior to that, but just after COVID, and how the rug had been pulled, especially after SVB happened, Silicon Valley Bank, and the impact it had on the tech market, and so much collapse in valuations and everything that happened. And I remember having a conversation with a couple of VCs in Israel, and they were quite pessimistic. And I'm like, listen, Israel is like its national sport. It's a basketball. And what I mean by that is if you smash a basketball down out of someone's hands, the harder you smash it, the harder it will bounce back.
Exactly.
We have taken the biggest hit that we could possibly imagine, right? A real smack on that basketball. And we're going to bounce higher. I am sure of it. And there will be people, there will be talent, there will be wealth, and there'll be the whole European and Western demographic. As you already know, I'm something that I'm quite keen to follow up on, a reverse brain drain fellowship of bringing the best talent from around the diaspora, young talent, in the tech space or in startup space, Jews who want to make Aliyah. And, I'm very keen to build that program.
It is. I think it's a national asset. It's a program of national security. I mean, if you think about this, if you truly think about this, the startup boom in Israel, the high tech boom in Israel, started after the Russian immigration out of when the Soviet Union broke apart, and we had all this brain drain of super smart people coming into Israel and started so many things. And I think this is going to be the second. I mean, you would like a bubble, if you can call it. It's going to be the second explosion of high tech because I am pretty sure we are going to get. I mean, if you're a talent in the high tech space and you're Jewish and you're seeing what's going on in New York, you're either going to Florida or Israel.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And it's not just there, right? I experienced this, firsthand, which is why I've, started putting that program together, which I have shared with you. I went to, I was, after all the advocacy stuff, I was made a candidate for the UK World Zionist Congress, as a representative for the UK. We didn't get elected over here, but that's a whole other story. But they nevertheless invited me, and I went. And in the party that I was with, which was Kol Israel, there were a number of young people, young Jews from various places, including the States. One young guy was 21 years old. Another girl, she was in her mid-20s, maybe late 20s. And the three of us were put together debating some text for the Zionist Congress, one of the topics. And then I looked at them after a half an hour chat. And I literally I was crying. I had tears right on my face. And they looked at me, and they looked at me and it's like, are you okay? And I said, no. I said, yes. I said, I'm in awe of you. I am in awe of you. Like, you are the smartest, cleverest, articulate brains I've ever seen. I couldn't believe what they knew. They were 21 years old. They blew me away. That's why I came up with the idea for the program, because it was that conversation.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop thinking about it after. Do we have that talent? And it's not just in Israel, but they want to come. These people are very Zionistic. They very much believe they want to come. They were there for the Congress. They were 21, right? They were doing like an innovation space. And I was like, I walked out of there. And I met, there was one of the guys I was sitting with, you might know him, Iran Kar. He's very known in Israel. And we were together on the same panel. And then I said to him, listen, this young man, Kevin, that I've been with, I'm like, he's blown me away. He said to me, Max, I've been doing a thing with students for years. I've seen tens of thousands of students, and he's the best, the best. He's the number one in all the years I've been doing it. And that made me think, we have these people. We need to bring them to Israel, give them the resources, create an environment for them to make it easy, because Aliyah is hard. Support them with a bit of capital, with a bit of living, with an ecosystem around them to build, because we have all the know-how, right? If anything is, I started feeling like now is a calling beyond, this is not about the war. This is about the future of Israel. That's it. So you or anyone watching this who wants to get behind that program, because obviously it needs some interesting levels of funding to put together. But I think that's where the future is. We've got to bring the best to Israel, and we've got to leverage off them and grow. I
totally agree with you.
That's where we win.
Yeah, because in all honesty, the only weapon we have is not the airplanes, it's not the ships, it's not the whatever gun you're using, it's not the missiles.
Between the ears.
Exactly. It's what you have between your ears. It's really all about that. And the reason why Jewish people have been so successful around the world is just because they are trained to become very literate, to become very educated. In the US until today, Jewish people are the highest minority of college graduates. 40% of Jews finish college, whereas I think the next one is, Indian. Definitely not Americans. They don't even, there's a very low statistics of Americans going to college. So we understand that we have to do it. There is no other option, as you said. Max, how can people reach out to you?
On LinkedIn with my name, on Instagram certainly is at Max Radford 10 is my handle, so just my name, number 10 at the end. And the other way is through you. So anyone you want to connect my way, and anyone who wants to really dig in and collaborate on anything, including that program, which I think is important, then,
And we haven't talked about business, and we definitely did not speak about soccer.
This is a bad week for me to talk about soccer. It hasn't been a good week for a while, although we did have a good week in May when we won the Europa League, but since then it's not been too hot. Business. Listen, for me, everything's starting again. That's why I like that project. I've been in that space for years. I was 25 years in the trading markets, 10 years in the ecosystem and startups, etc. But from here, and now my pull is to be more engaged with Israel side. So I'm searching for that opportunity. So I'd love to engage with the people that you mentioned that are super smart or in this space.
Yes.
But maybe we can get some people to get behind that program, because I think that touches everything that we've been talking about. For sure.
I totally believe it will.
Yeah.
It's
been a pleasure. Thank you for
Thank
still
you
having
very
the best
much.
beard I know. I can't quite get there. So, and it's better with a tan.
I get stopped on the street by it's Christmas now, almost Christmas, and I get stopped by the street legit Santa Clauses stop me and say, "Oh my God, look at
Floridian Santa." Only Floridian Santa has a tan, right? But you are an Israeli Viking. For me, you're an Israeli Viking.
That's a brand name. That's a brand name for the next beard balm. Israeli Viking.
Make a T-shirt. I'll buy the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Israeli Viking.
Okay, cool, man.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Love seeing
and
you.
we will do it again. We'll do another one.
Am Israel Chai.
Am Israel Chai. Thank you very much.